Distressed real estate. Now is the time to be positive problem solvers, as there is an increasing amount of properties that are in some kind of distress. Now, there's multiple different kinds of distress. Most of us typically are going to think about properties that are in foreclosure and default of some time. Also, properties that are in delinquent in taxes. That's a form of distress. Properties also can be physically and run down. That's a form of distress. Someone can be going through a personal situation, a death in the family, a divorce, bankruptcy, business situation. Those are all elements of distress. And the biggest part of that type of business, when you're a real estate investor or a broker, is being able to solve problems. My name is Steve Peterson with Infinity Investments, and we talk about all things commercial investment real estate. In today's video, what I wanted to talk about is kind of the stages of foreclosure and what are the best times to be able to solve a problem and make a deal. I started this off talking about distress. There's multiple different kinds of distress. So I'm going to do video kind of on a weekly basis about the different kinds of distress. Right now, we're talking about foreclosures because for the first time in a long time, we're starting to see an increased amount of foreclosures, certainly here in the Bay Area and throughout California, and I think throughout the country as well. And anytime when you have a really heated real estate market like we've had over the last couple of years, it's natural that there's going to be some amount of foreclosures. When you double the interest rates from where they have been, of course there's going to be some foreclosures, right? In the state of California, that is, every state's a little bit different. Let me just preface that. In the state of California, there's really three stages of foreclosure. First of all, there's the notice of default period. We call it NOD, all right? This is when typically somebody's missed a payment, they'll get a letter from the bank, and typically the bank, the lender, whoever it is, because all lenders are not banks, but the lender will send out a letter, and typically there has to be a 30-day late before this is filed. So they're going to get a letter, from the bank, and most banks nowadays are going to give you, another 30 days. You miss a payment, 30 days, you miss another one, and now they are in the zone of being able to file notice of default. A lot of banks, though, especially if you're a consumer, right? Meaning that you're a homeowner, you live in that house, they're going to give you multiple opportunities to try to rectify this before they file default. They really don't want to file default. But let me just say that also in the commercial real estate industry right now, a lot of lenders are working with the borrowers, or at least they're not filing default after the first 30 days or even 60 days. They're doing what's called a strategy. It's called extend and pretend. They're trying to work with the borrower, hope that this can get rectified, right? But once that lender, whether it's a house, whether it's a skyscraper, whether it's an apartment building, once they file notice of default, all right, that creates a 90-day cure period. The person who's now in default has 90 days to cure or bring that mortgage current, in which after that 90 days has gone past, now the lender can file what's called notice of trustee sale. The notice of trustee sale, we call it an NTS. Now this happens after the 90-day default period. A lot of banks, a lot of lenders will even stretch that out because they really, especially banks, don't want to foreclose. Hard money lenders might be different. Banks have regulations where they don't want to foreclose. They're going to try to work with you as best they possibly can. Once they file that notice of trustee sale, they have at least 25 days from the day they file it to when that sale date can happen. And a lot of times, again, they'll push it back. They'll make it more than 25 days, but a minimum, they can't do it in 23 days. They got to let 25 days, from the time they file, the date has to be at least 25 days out, right? A lot of times I see it 30, 60 days out. Again, they're trying to give you an opportunity to get this thing out because the second stage is that notice of trustee sale. Now, during that period of time, that is kind of desperation time. That is serious problem solving time. If you're on the selling end, we need to be trying to get a deal done during the notice of default period. Because what also happens, technically, especially in commercial loans, and especially in private money loans, is once we hit that notice of trustee sale phase, the lenders call the entire loan due, right? In that cure, the 90-day default period, you can bring in the money that you owe, the back payments plus the default interest and any legal fees, and you can catch your mortgage up and you can get back on track. Once you hit notice of trustee sale phase, a lot of lenders, now it's a little bit different in residential, but when it's a consumer loan, but in commercial real estate, investment real estate, for the most part, now they're now going to call that loan. So the whole entire amount is due. They don't want just your back payments. Now, every loan is a little bit different. So you know, talk to an attorney, get in this, but here's the bottom line. This now, once you notice the trustee sale period, this now becomes very difficult time to put a deal together. But from the buy side, a lot of times that seller, they need to get this thing done. They're going to be generally more flexible. That's why I say if you're on the sell side, let's try to get a deal done during that 90-day cure period, right? Because somebody can come in and pay your back payments, catch you up, get it done. That still may be possible in the notice of trustee sale phase. But in the notice of trustee sale phase, if your lender says, you know what, it's a private money loan or commercial real estate, we call in the whole loan. So you can't just bring in 100K and bring a square. You got to bring the whole amount back, right? You got to bring in all of it. That can happen at that point, right? And so now you've got a situation where, okay, it's not just the back payments. You got to bring the whole deal. And then once that notice of trustee sale phase is over, you have the actual trustee sale, the auction, right? The courthouse steps, 45, 55, 65, I sold, right? And there's people who they buy at the courthouse steps, they swear by it, that's all they do, right? It's a bidding war. It's a real life bidding war, right? And you got to bring in cashier's check, cash, you got to be ready to close. And when you buy at the courthouse steps, you do not get clear title. So I would advise only buying at the courthouse step if you are a savvy professional and you know what you're doing, right? The best time, after I just explained the 3 phases of foreclosure, notice of default, notice of trustee sale, and the auction, the best time, in my opinion, to try to strike a deal if you're in the for sale phase is in a notice of default period. If you're in the buy phase, it's really at the end of the notice of default period before they file trustee sale. Now, once they file trustee sale, there is more of a motivation from the seller's standpoint, but they may be restricted or limited to what they can do. And here's what I mean by that. Have you ever heard of a subject to or wraparound mortgage? These type of deals can happen when there's a notice of default phase because someone can come in and pay the back payments and even take over the mortgage subject to, right? Now, I'll do another video on what subject to is, but essentially it's where you come in, you make the back payments or you give the person some cash and you take over their property subject to the existing mortgage. The deed transfers to you. So you get deed at close escrow, but you don't formally assume the mortgage. You take it over subject to the terms, okay? And there's gonna be a term in that mortgage 9 times out of 10, 99.9 times out of 10. It's called the due on sale clause, meaning that the loan is due upon the sale of the property. So if the property gets sold, they're expecting to get paid, right? If you take over the property subject to, the property was sold, but the mortgage doesn't get paid off. Now, let me just say, totally legal. State of California, and just pretty much, I believe every state, but for sure in the state of California, I can say that. However, it may be a violation of the bank's policy. So if they find out about this deal, they can call that loan. However, for investors and for sellers, this can be a real-time solution to preventing a foreclosure. That kind of a deal is best struck at the end of the notice of default phase when, there is motivation from the seller. They've maybe tried to get it sold. They've tried to get some things done. It hasn't worked. And now we can do this kind of a subject to deal. Subject to deal can get very difficult to get done during the notice of trustee sale phase. I try to get business done in this distressed world. I started my company in November 2009, by the way. So I got a lot of experience in working foreclosures, short sales, subject tos, creative financing, all these types of situations. And if we can get to it before the auction is filed, we just have more options. Once it's in the notice of trustee sale phase, it's very stressful. The bank is really not that, if you're going to work a short sale, for instance, it's hard to get the bank to play ball when it's that close to the auction. However, it can be done. I've done it several times. We've been able to come in and extend the auction sale date and then work a short sale, all right? Short sale is when the property is worth less than the total loan amounts, right? So the bank has to take it short, which they would probably rather do that than foreclose. The problem is once they escalate it to the auction, it's hard to get that through. Very possible to get that through, but it's hard to get it through. So I believe the best time to structure a deal is in the end of that notice of trustee sale phase, where the seller's motivations at a point where it can meet the buyer's expectations and they can make a deal happen. Now, what happens if the deal goes to auction, it doesn't sell? Well, now it's what's called the REO. It's really like the fourth stage of foreclosures now, really, because now it's owned by the bank, it's owned by the lender. If it's residential, it's going to go through a process. Typically, it's going to go through their process. They have to get all these BPOs, and then they list the property on MLS, right? So, that now if you're trying to buy an REO from residential from the bank, it's very difficult. You almost have to, if you want to get it before it's the market, you have to buy a big package of them. That becomes very difficult, right? With commercial, though, and this is where the big difference is that I saw last market. I can bring a commercial REO asset manager offer before they list it. Now, they may say, I'm gonna go through my process, but they will listen to you. Residential, a lot of times they're not listening to you. They send it through the project. There's so many properties they have to deal with. They're not thinking about one property. Commercial is a little bit different. They are looking at each individual property. And if this property is a headache, a hassle, now your best time to strike that deal with that lender is going to be as soon as they foreclose upon it before they put it on the market. All right. So just a couple of little nuances. Now, it depends on which side of the ball you on, seller, buyer, whatever it is. The key here, y'all, is we looking to solve problems, right? What's the seller's problem? They're about to lose their property. If the lender takes back the property, okay, now it's a problem. They have to service it. They got to if it's a bank, they got to set aside money on the sidelines in order to have reserves for that. It's a black eye on their bank credit. They really just want to get the property off their books, right? So if you can solve a problem for them by taking this property off their book in an expeditious manner, now you win. But if you can get this deal done in the NOD phase, you're solving a deal. You're solving a problem for the seller. You're solving a problem for the lender. You're solving a problem for you as an investor, and they're making it happen. If you're a broker and agent, you're solving a problem by getting a transaction done that prevents a foreclosure, and you get paid. The key here is to be a problem solver, not to be an opportunist, right? Not taking advantage of people in this situation, but creating value by solving that problem that's there. Doesn't mean you shouldn't make money. You should, but you gotta. I believe it's about the way of going by it. In the last foreclosure crisis, I saw a lot of gritty, grimy, all bad. I also saw a lot of rough, tough hustle, and people I saw a lot of properties, and I saw people make millions of dollars doing it the right way, right? Solving problems, making deals. I also saw people, get over a lot, and I don't condone that. I don't believe in that at all. So I hope that this is helpful as we're navigating through these times. It's not easy at all. Everything's harder, but there's always a solution to the problem. You just gotta look for it. And sometimes if you're in the sales side, you got a couple properties in foreclosure, business, economy change, you can't see, right? So sometimes it helps to have an advisor to help you to navigate through those waters. So if that is you, man, click the link below, book a time. Let's talk about it. Let's see if you can save your property. If you need to sell it, let's talk about doing it at the right phase, not getting at the wrong phase where you have limited options. Hope this is helpful. Share it with somebody who maybe could benefit from this for real. And like, subscribe, stay tapped in to the next video. Deuces.